We've got Representative Beth Van Duyne from Texas District 34. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So right now, your district stretches from parts of Dallas over into Tarrant County, but we've got redistricting underway here in Texas now. So you know very well how powerful redistricting can be too, because your district was redistricted the last time around in 2021. You won your first election before that by a little more than a percentage point. The two elections since then, you've blown it out by 20 points each time. Do you worry in a case like this that your safe red district will not be as safe going forward?
You know, I don't ever look at a district as being safe. You know, I never do.
Smart.
I look at it, you know, when people say you're campaigning all the time, it's your job. You should be out and about. You should be talking to businesses. You should be talking to constituents. You should be having roundtables, doing tours, going to the chambers, you know, meeting with people. That's my job. So I have never really looked at the lines of my district. I enjoy my district. I love my district. Getting to know the new constituents, you know, since the 21 redraw has been phenomenal. But it's North Texas, and I just kind of look at it. It's all of North Texas that we represent. We all work really well together, and our job is to try to help and be responsive to the constituents.
Of course, we don't usually see redistricting in the middle of a decade like this. They are having to rely on those 2020 census numbers, as well as some other data here. And you know, you're in a district that's been growing fast. You've got you know, people who are mobile, who are leaving or coming into the district. Are you concerned that, you know, that's some old data that they're using there? Will they be able to surgically draw these districts and know exactly what they're doing, because there's some blind spots? Well,
that's up to the state. I mean, I am a representative. We at the congressional level don't have a whole lot of say in what the districts look like. I will run in whatever district they give me. But again, I look at it, it's North Texas. I have been working in this area for over 20, you know, being a representative in this area for over 20 years. I feel like I really know the people. I have done my best to have great relationships with the mayors, the representatives, our state senators, you know, our county elected officials. And I'm just excited to be able to, you know, to represent and to do fun things like what we're about to talk about next, hopefully, with our job fair.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Have you been speaking with the map drawers at all?
No.
Why not?
Look, you know, it's not unprecedented. Again, I really appreciate my district. I enjoy my district. This is not for, you know, Congress to direct. You know, the state is going to do what the state is going to do. I've got great relationship with our state elected officials, but it's North Texas. It's very, you know, I find it really hard to find somebody on the street and say, do you know who your Congress members are? They can probably give me half a dozen names of Congress members, but it's also really hard to figure out within, you know, a very large urban area like we've got in, you know, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, who exactly you represent. And quite honestly, we get calls from all around the Metroplex. And so we just try to be responsive.
Whether you're their representative or not,
exactly right? Exactly right.
Now, Democrats are calling this a blatant gerrymander. They say it's a power grab to draw the maps in the middle of a game when we normally wouldn't, so that you can create more safe Republican seats. They say the GOP is doing this because the party is worried that the Republican agenda, the Trump agenda in the first part of his presidency here is unpopular, and that might create a blue wave come the midterms. What do you say to that?
I say, you know, Democrats, whenever you have an opportunity to do this, you do. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Look at what they did in Illinois. Every opportunity that they had to be able to flip a red district blue, they did. You know, in Wisconsin, the cry when they were campaigning for, you know, the new Supreme Court case, in the Supreme Court justice, the campaign in Wisconsin, the whole point was they were going to try to flip at least 2 seats from red to blue. So this is not unprecedented. But again, you know, I think that the president is doing a great job. I look at the last 6 months, you know, this one big beautiful bill that we passed, what Republicans have been working on, that, you know, I would have guessed that everybody in Vegas would have been betting against us, that we as a conference could have voted to support some of these bills and actually get them over the finish line. We are working to be able to bring home jobs, to increase the economy, bring back manufacturing to our country, work on supporting, you know, those folks who are, you know, securing our border. All of these things are part of that bill. We're in Texas. This bill also included a bunch of ways of being able to unleash American energy. That's important to Texas. It's important to our country. Actually, it's important to our world and our allies. This is what this Trump administration has been working on. This is what Republicans have been working on. So again, I hear some of the cries from my Democrat colleagues. God bless them. I think they have problems with their own party. They are really trying to figure out who they are. The last 4, 5, 6 years, they have become so radical in what they have supported, criminals over constituents. Really a very narrow margin of oddities is who they have been pushing for, and they're lost. And I think right now they're just kind of desperate to be able to grab onto something. If it's redistricting, it is what it is, but I would remind them it's not unprecedented.
Yeah, to your point about Democratic redistricting as well, now they're threatening that, hey, if they're going to do that in Texas mid-decade, we need to do it in California and Illinois again, and maybe some other states as well. There's a few roadblocks that they'll have to get through to be able to do that, but that is certainly something that they're talking a lot about right now. So, if we see this escalation, I mean, do we get to a point where, some states are redistricting every congressional election, every other congressional election? Ultimately, if we get a lot more safe blue districts and safe red districts, where the other party doesn't stand a chance in an election, what does that do to voter choice, and is that good for democracy? Well,
again, I would hope that that's not the case. We spent the last 3 years really trying to get to know, District 24 as it was redrawn, and get to know the constituents, the businesses that are there, what their issues are, and how we can help doing casework and other things like that. But, as far as whether or not you've got safe blue districts or safe red district, there's never a safe district. If you've got a majority Republican district, you are always going to face, challenges in a primary. The concern is—
But a lot of these are decided in the primary.
Potentially. But, that's problematic. I don't mind having competitive districts. I think it gets you stronger representatives. You have to win in a primary and you have to win in a general. I think that's fine, and I think that's what you're seeing with redistricting across the country. But there is never something as a safe district. When I first got elected as city council, nearly every single one of our county elected officials was Republican, and now, as you see, they're Democrats. So where they could have said, "Oh, I have a safe district," no, we have changing demographics in this state, in this country, and we've got a lot of people who are moving in because of solid, financial, fiscal, empowering policies. A lot of people you see moving here from places like California, from Illinois, from New York. As long as they just don't bring their politics with them, and they recognize and appreciate the reason why they're moving to a state like Texas.
I want to talk to you about some legislation that you filed recently, the Stop Funders Act, where this would consider rioting to be a form of racketeering, which would basically open up a lot more stronger prosecutorial tools, like being able to group prosecute and enhance penalties and that sort of thing. Of course, one person's riot these days is another person's peaceful demonstration. So it's likely to cause some controversy there. What made you do this?
Well, look, we saw in North Texas on 4th of July, you had 14 very well organized, very well funded terrorists that went onto our North Texas detention ICE facility. And opened fire using AR rifles, wearing black military style clothing, opened fire on officers there. You have seen these riots since George Floyd that are on our campuses, that are in our cities, that are targeting law enforcement. The violence is escalating. These are not peaceful protests. These are where heavy, rifles are participating in shooting at our officers. These are not just, friendly protests.
And basically, this goes after the organizers of these different demonstrations. This is exactly what this is doing.
This is looking at this as a crime organization, and it's not just targeting the people who are on the, part of the riots, but also who are the organizers, who are the funders, who are the associates. And it's giving additional tools. It's allowing federal law enforcement to connect the dots, to look at previous charges. For example, there was the shooter that was in Austin who had been in a number of different riots, had pointed a rifle at a police officer and had a very liberal DA in Travis County ignore it. But it's allowing federal law enforcement to be able to put together those other offenses and have very stiff penalties, to be able to potentially use plea cases to get more information.
Now, we've seen in the past that similar legislation has drawn criticism because, critics say that this, puts a chill on organizations, activist organizations that organize rallies.
Well, I would argue that having pre-printed material, putting AR rifles in the hands of people who are going to use them against law enforcement is not one of those activities that should be taxpayer relief, right? Because a lot of these NGOs that we're seeing do this don't have to pay taxes. They have a lot of benefits. These are not benefits to society. This is not a free expression of your First Amendment right. These are terrorists that are attacking with violence in a very organized, very structured fashion our law enforcement, and it's got to stop.
You mentioned the George Floyd demonstrations. Could this have been put in place or used, do you think, in some of the demonstrations here for the George Floyd protests?
I'm not familiar with that. I've just seen what's happened since I've been in Congress, and in the organized law enforcement violence that we have seen, and it has really gotten to all-time highs. Whether or not it's on campuses, whether or not it's in our urban areas, whether or not it's at our ICE detention centers.
Would it have possibly applied to January 6th at the U.S. Capitol as well?
Again, I mean, we were looking at it. Did we have an organized, rise? Were there people that were there that were just looking at their First Amendment rights? What we saw that under the January 6th was we saw a federal government that went in and went to bank accounts and were following people to their homes that were seen in footage. I would argue that they went way above in their investigation of the January 6th riots, way above what this RICO expansion would cover.
Let me talk to you about this job fair. It's the 2025 version of the North Texas Job Fair. This thing has just exploded and kind of taken on this life of its own now.
Yeah.
You started this.
Well, I think my staff might disagree with you, but.
But I mean, you started this in 2021. We were thick in the pandemic. You started it out. It was overwhelming response in that first year, and now it has just grown by leaps and bounds even beyond that.
Well, this started in 2021 when we were talking to businesses that were trying to hire people. And everybody was home, people weren't going back to work, we had extended unemployment. So we scheduled this to be 2 weeks after the extended unemployment ended. Businesses were trying to hire people, and people were trying to get jobs. People were trying to get higher paying jobs, jobs with better benefits, jobs with greater flexibility. And so we were responsive, to what we heard in the district, and we started this in 2021. And it's a lot of logistics that goes into it, but it is so phenomenal. So the first year we had about 6,000 people come. We had about 250 businesses that participated. Now we've more than doubled the number of businesses that are participating. Last year we had 25,000 people that came, and about 30% were $100,000 and above jobs. This is the largest independent job fair in the country. We have got about, like I said, 500 different businesses in North Texas representing, every single area, every single industry, from starter jobs to C-level positions. And it's been great because we just put in our bill, right? Work requirements. Mm-hmm. Well, now it's time to actually help people find work. So it's not just about putting requirements in a bill and fairness, but it's also about getting home and doing the work in your district. And so when people talk about, August recess and we're going home and we're not in DC working, we are home working. And this, I think, is a perfect example. And I could not be more pleased with the response that we've gotten. And it's been completely nonpartisan. I don't even want to call it bipartisan, but nonpartisan. We've reached out to all of our mayors, our state reps.
Jobs, yeah.
Well, but to ask people to be able to partner with us.
Right.
So it's mayors that we're reaching out to, regardless of their party affiliation, our state reps, our state senators, our North Texas Congress members. Mark Vesey has always, participated in the past. Jobs are nonpartisan, and in the businesses that are here that are supporting, our communities, job opportunities, it allows people to be able to get more money, keep more money, and be more independent, and really be successful. And I think that's what this is all about. Okay,
that's the sales pitch. So let me give the info here for you. This is going to be happening at the home of the Texas Rangers. Everybody knows where that is. Globe Life Field, and it's going 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on August the 7th. Going to be a ton of people out there, a ton of jobs up for grabs.
Get there early, bring plenty of resumes, and bring your walking shoes. Last year we had it on 2 concourses. Now we're not only including 2 concourses, but also half a concourse right on the same level as the playing field.
That's crazy. This started awesome. 4 years ago in a library. It was supposed to start in a library. I mean, it's just grown exponentially. Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne from District 24 here in North Texas. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.